All right, let's do this. Welcome again to IT Security Labs. We had some technical difficulties earlier where the audio was not working. So please let me know how audio is doing right now. It should be better. I was doing some testing after updating this system. So if anybody's online, please let me know how this is going because I'm very curious. And if the audio is good, we might as well get started. I do not want to miss today's fun. Thanks, Matthew, for confirming that the audio is good. But yeah, I'm not going to waste a lot of time here. Let's go ahead and actually start the attack. This machine is called Brute, and it's very good for those who want to just learn basic ethical hacking. And also, if you're just interested in, learning the methodology and picking up on new skills, this is going to be a really good machine. And as always, we have security onion intrusion detection here, which is working for us. So we should be able to see some alerts, and also it should work. We will have a link to the description for the machine and also the creator who made this machine. I was looking for him on Twitter. I couldn't find him. Thanks for the feedback about the audio. All right. So this machine is called Brute, and I have it on 192.168.38, and this is on 97. So what we're going to do is follow the same methodology that we always do. This is a Linux machine, and we have a step-by-step methodology that we try to follow. And earlier I had put together these slides here that I was going to share with you. So let me just do that quickly so we can make sure that it works. So why do we do this every week? And why are we so persistent? Even after it broke, I still came back, right? These are the attack and detect labs that I make, and also I use some that I find on the internet. And we really want to know, what is hacking? How do attackers do it? And then we also want to know, okay, once they do it, what does that look like for us as defenders? At heart, I really like to defend, and I'm a big fan of defense, but I could not defend what I don't know, and that's why I really enjoy doing this. So our main goal is to really stack the attacking process, do what the attackers do. It's very unfortunate that you can go and defend and you have never attacked something in your life. That's really unfortunate, because if you want to know the mindset of the other person, you have to do it. If someone is going to break into your house, you have to think about how they might break into your house. And someone told me that I needed some credibility. So here's what we're going to be doing. We're going to enumerate and find out that there is a service that is running with very weak credentials. Then once we find that service, we're going to use log poisoning attack to get a reverse shell. If you did the advent of the cyber challenge with me, I think it was one of the days where we did a log poisoning attack. We'll do it again today, so you get to see how, if a website is running PHP, you can do log poisoning attack and actually get a reverse shell from it. It's very easy and trivial. You get to know how to do it today. Then we perform lateral movement here using Hashcat's rule-based attack. And so you learn how to use Hashcat and how to do some lateral movement using that. Then, of course, we're going to use command injection. There's a script that you can hijack. And if we have time, we will just look through our traffic in Security Onion. So that's our goal here. I will have a link to the machine for you. But right now, let's get started here. Instead of a ping, the very first thing that we need to do is Recon, right? Someone would have given you an IP address, or you could have looked it up online using DNS entries and things like that. But this time, we have an IP address. If you put this in your lab, check your DHCP server, and you can run nmap -sc -sv. SC is saying, hey, let's use some saved scripts. There's default scripts that nmap is going to use. And then SV, it will just give us service version. And right now, I'm just doing a TCP scan on top 1,000 ports. I did not scan all ports here. I just did top 1,000 ports. So you need to make sure that you specify the P option if you want to do this. Hey, Jupiter, thanks very much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Right away, we see we have this. So our second phase is, once we identify the ports, well, we see port 21 is open. What is the one thing that I use? I remember last year near the end, I was so fired up. I would come here and say, if you see port 21, what do you do? Well, and there's a few things that you need to do as an attacker. And this is how people fail with the OSCP. I had so many people reach out to me like, well, I didn't check the version. First, we have port 21, we have a version. Before we go anywhere else, you owe it to yourself to just do something like this. Do a search. Hey, is this thing even vulnerable? So far, what I'm seeing is denial of service. There's no money in denial of service for us. We don't want to do a denial of service for ourselves, but that version is vulnerable to denial of service. Maybe not the way to do it today, but yeah. And X-Royd said, let's go and do anonymous login. Yes. It really kills me that you see port 21, even if this thing didn't tell you that anonymous is open, for whatever reason, we go and try it. Let's try anonymous login here. FTP. Let's just do it. Let's get to root actually. All right. I really missed attacking Linux. This is really fun stuff, guys. I hope you enjoy this as much as I do. All right, let's see. So FTP to 192.168.38.97. Let's see. Can we get in as our good friend Anonymous without a password? Or Anonymous. In this case, it doesn't work. But you owe it to yourself. Try it. I don't even trust that Nmap is going to tell me whether or not. I just tried by default. So in this case, it doesn't work. Next is port 22. As part of your methodology, you're going to realize that port 22 might be vulnerable sometimes, but not always. Most of the time, it's brute forcing once you get some users. Or you can use this information here to determine the version of the machine. Say if you wanted to go for a kernel exploit. But in this case, we can't actually, we're not interested in finding the version of the machine right now because we're not after a kernel exploit. So I will not enumerate further using this information here. But what you should know is you can use this information that SSH gives you to find out, okay, what version of Ubuntu is out there. Because if you copy Ubuntu and this specific version here, you notice that I think this is tied to Ubuntu 18 or 20. Then next on the list is port 80. This is good stuff. Once you see port 80, and I also see the last one is 3306 MySQL here. Once you see port 80, first thing that you just do is open your Firefox and visit that website. While Firefox is coming out, I also like to bring up Hydra. No, not Hydra, Burp Suite. This year, you're going to see me using Burp Suite a lot. Like I'm going to intentionally, no matter what, try to use Burp Suite if I'm interacting with the website. This year, my main goal is to get really good at web application testing. So I'm going to rely a lot on Burp. I almost bought a license for Burp for the licensed version, but I don't want to do that because it will defeat the purpose. I don't want to use many automated features of Burp. I like to rely on myself a lot, so I won't be getting a license for that matter. But we are launching Burp Suite right now, and let's go to the website. It's 192.168.38. Okay, it's just launching. Give it a second. I think I did too many things at once here. All right. 38.97. So since this is just port 80, I don't need to do HTTPS or anything like that. Let's just go to that website and see what's running there. I think it's this session right here. And Burp Suite is coming up. Okay, let's do even one more. Let's bring up GoBuster and bust some directories on that website since we're already there. I'll bring up my OneNote as well. I do keep some really rough notes. They're not the prettiest, but they get the job done. Hey, how's it going, my dicks? So far, what we've done is we just scanned our target. We found out that it's running port 80, and we're now trying to go and visit the website here in my Kali Linux. All right, so on the website, there is a login page, username and password. What do you do when you're faced with a login page? You're an attacker, you just start typing stuff, right? Admin, password, you know, the obvious things, administrator password, things like that. But also at the same time, I'm looking at the errors that I get. I'm looking at what kind of login page is this? First, right away, I see that it's a PHP website, which is interesting. But let's check the page source. Maybe we'll be able to see something there. This thing isn't talking at all. It doesn't want to talk to us. As you can see, there is nothing that we can get from it. It's just a login page. We don't know if it's WordPress. We don't know if it's a CMS. But if you're ever faced with something like this, you're looking around here all the way at the bottom as well. Check, is it a WordPress? What platform? And then maybe you can look up things to like passwords and things like that. But this time I don't have anything, which is unfortunate. But that's not bad. Since this thing is not talking, I'll throw GoBuster at it. This is the second phase of our attack. Okay. Let's go to my enumeration tab. I have my GoBuster here. I'll use SecList with web content, word list. I think that'll get the job done. You might be looking at this like, well, why do you do that? Why do you copy and paste things? Why don't you just type things like everybody else? It's because I don't like typing things and I don't want to make mistakes and get frazzled by silly things. So right now, I'll explain the syntax here. This is GoBuster. GoBuster will go to the website and do a directory search using a word list. And what it's doing is there's a bunch of directories that are listed here. GoBuster will go one at a time and check to see if there's anything else on the website. So all I need to do is just point to my website here, and this will do. And in this case, it didn't even like 192.168.97. Oh, it needs to be a valid URL. So GoBuster is actually going to be doing that. Another thing that you can look at, since this is a PHP site, you can try to fuzz this website here using wfuzz, since it is an index.php. But chances are, since it's a login page, I would like to fuzz it after I've signed in. I don't think there'll be command injection right on the login page here. But that's something to do. And while we're doing this, let's check our detection here to make sure that it's actually working. This is our security onion intrusion detection system. It's seeing everything that we're doing right now. So let's go to our alerts. Right away, I would like you to observe, I didn't show you this before, but I would like you to see that we see nmap here, also Kali Linux potential DHCP requests. That is interesting. I just restarted my machine, and if it sees a DHCP request that is saying, hey, my name is Kali, I need an IP address on your network, it logs that. This is so that defenders can tell, hey, someone is spinning up a Kali Linux machine. So if you want to hide on someone's network, don't get a DHCP IP address from them. if you don't have your host name as Kali Linux or Kali is my machine here. Maybe have a different host name than Kali. But we see that we actually have Nmap scans here. All this is actually from Nmap right now. Let's look at one of them. I'm just using the drill down option from Security Onion, and I'll make myself smaller here so we can actually see more. What did our intrusion detection system see that made it say, hey, we think that there's Nmap which is scanning for MySQL ports here? And what you're going to see is, here is a message of what happened. Let me see on the network data.decoded. Here's a rule that fired that says, hey, we see potential scan. This is just a scan for MySQL. So it's saw a port scan for MySQL. Let's go back to one way we might be able to see an Nmap user agent. Someone says, are there any custom alerts or just the built-in rules? No, right now I'm just using the one out of the box, but I did update my rules the other day. These are the default rules that you can pull from ET Pro. I didn't specify anything interesting in here. Yeah, these rules are not as exciting. I guess we'll drill down on this one for potential SSH. Yeah, so these are just the default rules. And if you want to know more about rules, which I highly encourage you to do, once you see if an alert fire, copy the rule reference and go to its link. This one is from Emergent Threats. It will show you, if you know how snort rules are constructed, you also know how the same suricata here. This one is set as an alert. It's looking for TCP traffic. So if this traffic was anything different other than TCP, it will not be here. It's looking for HomeNet to any external on port 22. And the message is potential SSH outbound. It saw me scanning. I don't know why I thought it was an outbound connection here. But if you're more interested in like how it's actually doing this, you can create your own rules within Security Onion, and just you can make rules up, especially if you go to the Grafana Kibana interface. Once you see the traffic that you want, you can actually make the rules and match that traffic if you want as well. All right, so let's look at the alerts. Awesome. All right, so this is actually still going. Let's go back to our attack here. We ran GoBuster. I did that so that GoBuster can finish. All right, GoBuster is not finding anything. I'm going to stop this right now. Let's run Nikto. Nikto is another wonderful tool. It's very loud though. I wouldn't run Nikto in someone's network unless if you really want to get caught. So Nikto would do some basic scans on our website. So it will do like a web application testing for the most common things that people catch, like default pages that expose information. Usually if it's like a WordPress or something like that, it finds a lot of things like default WordPress install files that are exposed. There's a bunch of checks that Nikto will do. And in this case, it actually did just found a config.php. Really? Let's go find that. So maybe GoBuster would have found that later. Okay, so this config.php is blank. We don't see anything here, but it's there. Okay. So once we sign into the system, we should look for that file if we want to see more information about the configuration for this thing. All right. So that was on our website. So far, this website is not talking. It's really just a login page and a bunch of nothing. But at least we tried. So we don't forget about 80. We'll keep that one in mind. But of course, we did see 3306 open here. And what this port is used for is a default MySQL database. And this is where things get interesting. As an attacker, now you're thinking, well, MySQL, first, how do I sign into MySQL? And second, how do I even enumerate MySQL? There's SQL map that you can use for SQL injections and things like that. But let me look in my notes here. No. I don't want to do a global search because I do have some things. MySQL default credentials word list. Let's see if I can find a MySQL default creds. Oh, here's a sec list for it. Someone did a very good job for us. Yeah, someone says, due to insufficient hint, is it worth to run Hydra to brute force? Oh yeah, we are going to brute force it. We don't know anything right now. We're getting desperate. I use brute forcing as a last resort. I try to do the more elegant attacks. But if I don't have anything going on for me, I'm definitely going to go for brute forcing. So here is a wait list for MySQL that we can use, but we can just use Hydra like Royd said here. So let's go and just fire up Hydra and brute force this, because we don't know much about why or how it's running, but you can try basic things, right? But for now, let me just show you the command that I'm going to use with. I'm going to show you the command that I'm using with Hydra, because we don't have anything going on here. I just copied this from my my notes, but here's how it goes. There's a tool called Hydra that we're going to use to brute force for the user root, and the password we don't know. So I'm going to use a password in the linked. Actually, I'm just going to use roku.txt here to make our lives easier. This is in the seclist linked databases folder on your system. You already have this. If you have never used this word list here, make sure that you are untied, because it might be zipped. There will be a .gz file in there for you. Then we point to our IP address, and then at the end here we say, hey, the service that we're attacking is called MySQL. So if we do that, let's see what we find. Here is my Hydra cheat sheet. I highly encourage you to have a cheat sheet for yourself. So in my Hydra cheat sheet here, I have all kinds of services. I can go for SMP, RDP, SSH, and it's just a matter of knowing, hey, I want Hydra to go after a wait list and then the service at the end here. And if you're interested, here's a Hydra cheat sheet link that I have for you, which will make your life very, very easy. If you have never used Hydra, this is where I found them. And I'll put this in the chat right now, just in case someone is making their own notes. It will save your life. Like, especially if you're going for the OSCP, the last thing you want to be doing is struggling with silly things like Hydra. All right, so we fired Hydra. Again, scanning and brute forcing is not my thing, but it's part of the attack, right? So we used roku.txt and found the password is roku, which is very easy, and the user is root. So what do? We just sign in now to this IP address using roku. Then hosts. This is how you sign into MySQL. If you don't know this, complete the advent of the cyber challenge. There was one where we learned about MySQL. We also learned about other databases like Microsoft databases. We also learned about, there's another one, MongoDB. So you know how to interact with databases. Just complete the advent of the cyber challenge. Okay. Wait. I have my syntax wrong. Of course. Maybe I don't need this minus h here. Really? I'm struggling getting into a MySQL database. I've done this before. Let's see. Yeah, the other one was MongoDB. So let's see. Let me get my MySQL. Excuse me. Let me get my MySQL syntax correct here. I'm doing too much talking at the same time, and I'm now okay. MySQL minus h. Yeah, I did right. Then minus u. Let's do it again. It was minus h first. The user is root. Access denied for user root. Using password. Of course. The password was ROQ. Let's see if we can get in. All right, so we got in. This is a little trick that I saw last time, where if it's giving you a hard time, it's not taking your password. You can do a minus P, open quotes, put the password there. So you know 100% that you're not mistyping the password. So you learned something there. All right, so once we're in here, we've done MySQL so many times on this channel, but people do different things. I do this. I want you to tell me what databases are there. And once I look here, information schema and performance schema are going to be default. MySQL is also going to be default. So you're looking for interesting databases. In this case, I see website. So I tell it, hey, use website. It will change to that. Then I'll say, hey, from this new database, show me the tables. And I only have one table called users. So I don't even waste time here. If I see a table called users, I don't want to know what fields are there. Just show me everything from the users table. So you just say select all from users. And this is as easy as it comes, right? We have a user Adrian and a hash, password hash here. At least these people actually have the password saved as a password hash. If you don't know what this hash is, this looks like a classic Unix password hash. I can tell because it starts with the $sign and the second $sign here. If you are not sure, you can use hash identifier for this to find out what kind of hash it is. So that's what we're going to do right now. I think that should work. Or otherwise, you can just go to the internet and say, hey, Google, here is this. There has to be an online version of that as well. All right, so we paste that hash here. Hash identifier is going to tell us, oh, this one is actually not identifying it. Okay, this is a Unix hash. So what we can do is we can now save it in a file and crack it. I've done so many machines. Here is some of them. Hash ID, okay. So here is our hash. We can now use hashcat to crack this, and it's just a matter of syntax, right? You come to your notes. I'll just show you the command here. We're going to use hashcat to point to a hash.txt and crack it, which is very, very simple. And if you have not used the hashcat before, it's a very easy hash cracking tool, and you need to know what kind of hash it is. So in this case, it's this -32 here, 3200 here, that we use for cracking Linux or Unix saved hash. This hash will look like the same hash that you find in Etsy shadow file. And we're cracking it using, of course, our good friend Roku.txt. It's in the linked databases for me. And this will try to crack the hash. And since this is a Unix type of hash, what you're going to realize is that, well, if it looks like the hash for a password that's saved on the system, what do? We're going to try port 22 once we find it. All right, so it's telling us, hey, by the way, it looks like you actually have cracked this hash before. So you need to use this show. Can I do that? Yeah. So this is the actual password. If you crack it correctly, it's Tiger. So we now have a username, Adrian. We have a password. And going back here, we have port 21, which didn't let us in last time, but this time we have a password. And also port 22. So you want to make sure that you use that. Rohit is saying, in my opinion, which tool is best for cracking passwords or hash cracking? If you find a simple hash in CTFs or other places, I would use CrackStation first before you go anywhere else. Then, of course, you can use John for trying to crack some other hashes. In this case, we're using hashcat. Hashcat is by far my favorite because it's more accurate. So hashcat is definitely on the list. But if you find other hashes other than Unix, I'll go to CrackStation right away, especially if you are not sure. All right, so our password is Tiger. And going back here, we have 22 and 21. Just to make sure that everything is good, let's go to 21 and try again. Then we'll go to 22. So we'll do FTP 192.168.38.97. And our user this time is Adrian. And the password is Tiger. Let's see if we get into FTP. It's hanging. Okay, FTP doesn't like us. We go SSH. It's Tiger. SSH sometimes hangs before it actually works, so that's good. That's always good news. Let's try again. The password is TIER, Tiger. Okay. As you can see, it didn't ask me for. It actually never asked me to accept the key because I already did this, so I know it works. Let's try again. Let's go back to where I cracked it. I want to make sure that I have the right user here. Let me make sure that I'm using the right user. What was my user? Yeah, that should work. And then the password is Tiger. That's interesting. Maybe it's case sensitive. Let's try. Yeah, if this doesn't work, we'll go to one more place where we found, because it'll be too easy if they just let us get in like this. It'll be way too easy. And on save. So it's saying welcome. So our credentials don't work for SSH, but as attackers, we know we have to try FTP, SSH, and the last one, which I almost forgot, the website. If you click here, it says welcome. Your file, your log files is ready for viewing. So let's view whatever the log file. This is not fun. So here's what I usually do when I'm presented with things that look funny like this. I right click and I view the page source. It usually displays the logs in a nice to see. Look at this. It's line by line now. So it's saying, what kind of logs are these? What's happening here? Oh, here's a failed attempt. It looks like anonymous. Looks like FTP logs. This is where the fun begins. All that stuff was just fluff. This is right here where the fun begins. So we are logging everything that happens on FTP right here as admin. What we know from, we did on the admin of the cyber challenge, we did log poisoning a little bit, and I actually showed you how to get reverse shell. If we are just logging and everything that we are putting in this FTP command is just getting there, well, what's to stop us from trying something funny like this? FTP, then maybe something silly like this. Put a command here and see if it shows up there. Yeah, which netcat? That's what I just wrote there. So whatever I type on FTP in the username is showing up here as whatever it is. So here's what I'm going to do. Since this thing is just saving all my commands locally here in the log file, I'm going to send it something interesting, something like a web shell or something that allows me to run web shells using PHP. So I'm just going to do a simple PHP here. I'm doing a Google search. Because what I would like to do is I would like to poison these logs so that it gives me the ability to run commands up here. That's all I'm after. I like to poison these logs so I can run commands on this thing by calling those that command. So in order for me to do that, let's go back here and exit. If I do that, let's poison that log file. And one thing that you can do when we are poisoning the logs is you can put this command here. You're saying, hey, PHP, echo to the system so that I can get command injection. This will be saved as part of our logs. This will poison the log so that we can actually type CMD and be able to run commands. But before I do the echo, let me show you in simple terms before the echo. I want one without echo, and I'll explain the difference here. If I just do this and say, hey, PHP, give me command injection, and then password of test, this will inject this on the website and allow me to actually get command injection. So if I go back here and I do a log, let me refresh that so I can resend it. This is easier in Burp Suite, which I'll be using in a second here. But after I did that, if I do it question mark CMD equals to ID, then I can check my log. See what happened here. It happened very quickly. Here's my command here. And it's giving me www data. So what did I just do? I came here and I said, hey, since this thing is logging everything that I'm sending, I'm going to send it this PHP one-liner and say, oh, by the way, give me command injection on the system. And this is going to be saved on the system as part of the logs. And when I come back and I ask you for it, it actually shows you the thing. And thanks, BT, that's exactly the one that I use, the cheat sheet. It will show you this one here. So I would like to take this further. Let's use Burp Suite instead so that we can intercept this. So we're going to intercept the request with the Burp Suite, send it to repeater, then we can play around with things like that. And as you can see, I'm using the community edition. Okay. And once Burp Suite comes back, we should be able to see. Let's go back to here. What did we see? Or did we see anything at all? This is our security onion intrusion detection system. And since nothing is encrypted here, we're just using everything out as default. I see it didn't actually look for anything interesting other than what we already had last time. I'm surprised it didn't see the PHP injection. Let's go and track it down by hand. I would like to see that command that was logged there and me running that ID command. And Kibana is being slow as well. It's multitask. All right. So in here, oh, wow. Whatever happened up here, it looks like when you're brute forcing, we had 180,000 events. That is insane. That's a lot of logs. In the Discover section, I can actually interact with the data directly. This is what I like to do. I know relying on alerts and responding to them is cool, but I also like to come and interact with the data directly here. Give me the last 1 hour. That way I don't have too much data. Okay. I can pull moves like this where I search index.php because I have a very small SIM solution. If you have a very big one, your employer would tell you to go pound sand. They will not allow you to search for vague terms like this. This will take forever. So here I'm just looking for all the requests that I sent to index.php. Of course, it's now finding me the modules. That is not the smartest one. One and 168.38.97. That's a better one instead of what I was looking at earlier. All right, while that is coming up, let's bring up Burp Suite here. I hope by jumping around like this, I don't lose people. I just want to efficiently use my time. So I'm looking for the IP address and index.php. Here's all instances where that happened. So you can search by destination IP address of that IP address, or you can just use wildcards like what I'm doing here. What I'm just doing is I'm looking at, okay, what kind of traffic did we generate? And if you have never looked at one of these before, this is what it looks like. We have two types of traffic that we have in this SIM. We have suricata events and we have Zik connection events and other weirds and other type of data. Zik logs in this case for MySQL. But what you can do is you can come in here and use this search bar, give it a time span, and search for pretty much anything that you want, like destination.port, let's say equals to 3306. This will show you every instance when MySQL was interacted with, mostly when it was scanned right here, and also when someone tried to sign in. So here's instances when that port, the MySQL port, was interacted with. A lot of them are going to be connection events, obviously. All right. So let's go back here and use Burp the way I want it. I'm using the latest version of Burp. I don't know if this is latest anymore. It's 2021 2.11. That's full disclosure because if you have an older one, it might not work for you. And what I like to do is I like to use their browser, which might take us a minute here. So just do open browser. Usually I start this ahead of time, so you don't have to see this working. What is the username and password for the vulnerable machine? I have no idea. The only way for us to find out is to attack the machine. All right, while Burp is coming, if you have command injection like this, what you can do is the easiest thing that you can ever do once you have command injection is Python. So you can do, which Python is almost like a guaranteed surefire way that you get a reverse shell. Anything else will fail for sure. You can ask the system, hey, which Python are you running? And it will tell you. Looks like it's opening. Come on. All right, this seems to be freezing. Okay. All right, let's give this system a minute here. Okay, so the destination port for us was that, and destination IP was 192.168.38.97. So this should give us all the traffic that that went to that IP address and also targeting that port. Why would you do this? You want to see, okay, we know MySQL is the way that we use to get in. You want to find out how many times did people interact with my MySQL database. In this case, we see 79 hits. It was at this time. Was someone working at this time? If the answer is yes, then that might be good. If this was midnight and no one was working, you know, maybe you were under attack. And in addition to that, if it's 79 like this, you can actually go through the instances when people interacted with MySQL and you can find out, well, what were they doing? Who initiated the conversations? And all these broken events here are an indication of that, where you can search for things. All right, so coming back here, now that this thing is finally responding, what I was saying earlier is you can ask it, hey, which Python are you running? There's two things that can happen here. You get a blank, that means that you don't have Python, or you get results, and it will tell you that you do have Python. So right now we're saying, hey, which Python are you running? And you're looking in the results here. So last time you said www.data. If it's running Python, it will give you a path to Python. So let's check the log. Do we have Python? No, we don't see a line that tells us. What about Python 3? If it's a newer version of Ubuntu, it will be running Python 3. And sure enough, it's running Python 3. So we know it's running Python 3. Python 2 is usually the easiest one to get reverse shell. So because it's running Python 3, I'm definitely going to use Burp Suite to make sure that we can get a reverse shell. So here's a browser here's what the browser looks like that comes with Burp Suite. It's a Google Chromium, is it called? So I'm going to maximize this. If you've never used Burp Suite before, this is a tool that we use for intercepting requests to your website. So for example, we want to go to this site here. You will come to Burp Suite's browser. It's going to ask us to sign in because it's a newer browser. And we have a username and password. Our username and Tiger. All right. It's never. We can still see our logs. What you want to do now is come here and turn interception on. Carly wants to unlock something. So once you turn interception on, you can then refresh this browser. It's not going to go anywhere. In fact, it will just come here. This is the request as it's being sent to the system. It's a post request, and right now you see it says log equals to log. So let's send this to repeater. This is where the fun begins, right? Repeater allows us to send this, and we can see, oh, it's just that same exact idea. Last time we were manipulating this right here to be able to inject commands. There's a better way to do that. And it involves FTP. So if you do FTP, instead of the system, we would like to use the echo request option. This, please put it in your notes. It might save you. If you would like to interact with this within Burp Suite, I found that this echo option works better, especially if you have something that looks like this. It's saying here, log is equals to log. We would like this to be part of our poisoned logs. This time, it's sending a request. It's just a different parameter than the one we sent last time, so that they're different. And we're using the echo option here. And this echo option allows us to manipulate it even further within the body. So I'll say test. It failed, which is good. But what that just did is do an injection on our system. All right. So going back to burp here in repeater, you see it says log is equals to log. I can now do an and down here. Command equals to ID, or who am I? If I say who am I should see www data showing up on the left side here, and if it works. And with repeater, we can do this as many times as we want without messing. Here's www data. So who am I is working. Do we have netcat? We can do a send. Burp Suite is really nice that way. Yeah, we do have netcat on the system. So at this point, it's game over. All we need to do is put a reverse shell here. Any line that gives us a reverse shell, and it should work. And I'll show you where you can find some reverse shells. I have a reverse shells cheat sheet here, and this one is actually kind of cool. I recently added this one. This is where you can get the pass-throughs that I was talking about. The one that I was using, you might be like, oh, where did you copy that from? This is like an example of an echo command and things like that. But if going to payload all things, what kind of reverse shell do we want? We want maybe bash. This one. Because why not? Okay, so which netcat? Instead of which netcat, the trick here is to say, hey, bash, run this command. So bash minus C, then paste what we had there. Instead, we would like to change this to 192.168.38. We don't know what is our IP address for Kali. This one, 38201, because we want it to call back. So we'd say 201 here. So what's happening here? Using command injection, we're saying, hey, bash, can you call back and run this on 4242? If all goes well, it should call here and we'll get a connection. It never always goes well the first time. So this is why I really like Burp Suite, because you can watch as things are happening. If I do a send here, I didn't see anything. It didn't work. And you're like, oh, what's happening here? Why is this not working? Can someone suggest something? Why is this not working, even though we know the line that we put here is a bash one-liner to get a reverse shell? Or what is the little trick that we can do with Burp Suite? It's called URL encoding, and that's why this is better to use than a browser. So let's URL encode just this part here. I just right-clicked after highlighting it. Convert selection, URL encode key characters. You might have to try a couple of times. I'm just encoding key characters, but if this one doesn't work, you go to encode all characters. So let's send this. All right, so encoding works. So the key here is if you are doing a reverse shell on a website and you have command injection, URL encoding can be very helpful. By right-clicking, convert selection URL, I just use this one. Usually I go for this one. That usually works almost all the time if encoding is a problem. So URL encode, put that in your notes as well. next time you have to do log poisoning, because if you're using burp, that might be the key you're missing. For the OSCP, someone will be banging their head why a reverse shell is not coming because of silly things like this. So once we're in, of course, we're in as www data. It's nothing interesting. And also, since we URL encoded, I don't know if we were able to see our reverse shell from the other side. All right, so we're just in as www data. So I think we found that there's a config.php. Earlier, here's the configuration file. Oh, that's interesting. Here's another password that you might want to save somewhere. But it doesn't want me to clear my screen, so I need to fix this shell. We're using Python 3. You will notice that I don't fix my shells all the way. I just fix them enough to be usable, mostly so that I can run the clear command. But this is how you fix a shell, and you will do this thousands and thousands of times. So you better have that as part of your notes, because it's one of those necessary evils. Without that, your shell will be behaving all in funny businesses. Why am I going home? Is because I want to see what kind of users do we have. I thought I had this user's password, but it was just... All right. It looks like we can't do much here. Most of these are owned by this user, and page history is going to dev now, so you got nothing here. But there's the FTP we can get in there. No, we can only execute. So that's interesting. And reminder we can read. So we can read this reminder file here. And it's saying, hey, rules best of 64 plus exclamation on this word. This is just CTF stuff. I'll tell you right now. The only way you would know about this is if someone tells you, or if you know how to use hashcat rules. So this is just CTF stuff. I don't know if anyone who does this. But hey, someone left us a reminder here that they're using best of 64, and it's an exclamation mark, and this is the word for it. So we're going to create, this is where CTFs kind of deviate from real life, but just bear with me, we're learning something here. We're going to create versions of this word here as part of the password, and we're going to add an exclamation mark using a rule best of 64 from hashcat. And that's all that's happening there. So if I go to my machines, I did some pre-work for us. I created a file called pass.txt. And I typed that word because that's the word that we need to be using. And I also created a rule called append.rule. And what this rule is saying is, hey, to whatever parameter that I put here, append an exclamation mark, and we're going to be using best of 64. So using hashcat, I'll be making a video on how hashcat rules work in a little bit here. But using hashcat, I'm saying, hey, I need this to standard out. Use pass.text as part of the passwords. This is like that. And the rule that you're using is best of 64.rule. This comes by default. We found that here. We want it to add an exclamation mark. And I did that here. Just append an exclamation mark. To append.rule, which is this one here. And give me a passlist.text when you're done. And what this is going to do is this will generate passwords following the rules in best of 64, appending an exclamation mark, and also using the word right here. If you hit enter, this will just hang for a while, or for at least for a little bit. So I'll just let it run here. But that's what was here. Just hashcat rules for generating passwords. You can use these to randomize passwords if you wanted to. But while that is running, sudo -l, we don't have a password, so this might actually not give us much. It requires a password, so you just need to hit enter multiple times until it fails. ls -la again. Yeah, FTP is even worse. All right, so coming back here, after it's done, it will give us a list of passwords. And we just generated a password list pretty much using hashcat. You can use this, generate your own passwords, and as you can see, there's just 64 passwords in here. All right. So what just excuse me. What just happened here? We're using hashcat rules to create a password list. So I created a file called append.rule. I actually had to learn this today when I was going through this machine. I've never done this before, but I'll make a video to show you what I found out. Append.rule, this is where you put a $, and then what you want to append. You want to append an exclamation mark. And it said somewhere here, that, hey, we need to use the rules best of 64, append an exclamation, and this is the word that we want to be using to generate the passwords. So we just generated a password list based on that word and by appending. And this is a append rule. If you wanted 2 exclamation marks, we'll put them here. If you wanted a number sequence, you can put it right here. And after doing that, we end up with a passlist.text, which is just a password list. And using the pass list that we have there, we can now brute force SSH using any of these as Adrian. So let's use Hydra again, but this time we're after SSH. I hope Hydra works. Well, first, we are not using roq.text anymore, so we remove that. So we're using passlist.text. We're going after SSH. And our user is Adrian. This might go fast because we only have 64 here, but let's see. The machine name is brute because we're learning how to brute force here. And if the password is in there, Hydra will tell us right away. and we got a hit. So this is the new SSH password that we actually found, not the one that I was using last time. So let's try that instead of what we were doing last time. 192. And let's find out what it does. All right. So we generated a word list using hashcat, using the rules that were given, and then we were able to SSH. There are times when you actually have to generate passwords. There are a few ways to generate passwords. This is one of them. Q using a website, or multiple ways. But right now we're in as Adrian and we have a password. So we should be able to do this. Sudo -L will tell us if we can run anything as sudo. And unfortunately we can't. We're back to manual exploitation again. Okay. So Adrian owns these files. First, let's start with this punch in, whatever. Okay, it's just showing us entries when Adrian is punched in. Okay, so the flag says we are halfway there. We're almost done. This doesn't actually take forever. All right. Bash history. I always check this bash history file. Going to FTP. Who owns that script? Adrian owns the script, and we also have some notes. Okay, so this script here is just running a shell script. It's running, it's using the echo command to echo $line here. And this is the punching in script that we saw earlier. You will notice that I do an ls-la. This is how I'm able to see these hidden directories. So there is a boss somewhere. So an admin wants admin check-in every 1 minute. All right, here's another CTF thing that we need to know. Here, don't worry about like the notes and everything. The idea here is we have a bash script that is running every minute, and you can find this information, say, from a cron job. And the biggest problem that they have here is that this bash script is running the echo command and it's looking for $line. When you set these variables on the system, in this case, they're calling it $line, I can create my own $line. And this thing will just echo. So it's echoing the value. So let's see if I can I just run this? Okay, so right now I don't have anything. The biggest problem here is if this thing is being ran by root, I'm checking the cron tab here. Do I have anything that's being ran? Okay. We got nothing. All right. So what we can do is we have this thing that is running every minute. Now it's bothering me. How is it running every minute? It's probably running every minute under the root cron jobs that are not shared by everybody, so I cannot see them. There is a command to see cron jobs that are owned by everyone, but you have to be root to do that. So right now we're just going to trust the system. And say the script is running this echo command. So there's a few ways we can do that. We can hijack the echo command itself, which will be interesting. Or we can hijack this second part here, where it's calling the $ line. And the second part is actually what's interesting. Because we can just let it run the echo command what it wants, but let's see if we can hijack this $ line here, which will make our life easier. What's in the temp directory? Nothing for now. Okay. Oh no, this one is useless. We don't need that anymore. So this is what we are running. And the $ is just picking whatever we put in here. Huh. All right, I'm not going to explain this right, but I'm going to introduce you to our good friend GTFO Beans. If you've never used GTFO Beans, you have been missing out. But there's this thing called SUID. And you either find SUIDs on a Linux system or you make them yourself. So when you have a system that is executing system commands as part of a script and someone other than you is executing them, in this case, the root user is running this punched in script and they are looking for whatever comes in here using a parameter $. So what that means is I can put what I want in here. I can say $ID. And that thing is so dumb, it will just come in here and actually run the command ID. I can put $netcat minus execute to my IP address, and it will do that. Actually, that's another way. You can just put your netcat command in here and it will run it. But the one easy and probably the best way is to just use bash SUID. What this will do is it will just say, hey, by the way, can I just run bash with an SUID? And what you can do is you can copy the bash binary, put it in temp folder, and give it an SUID. And if you give bash binary and SUID, you can just type bash minus P, and you will get a bash shell, which will have the privileges of whoever ran it. So let me explain this for a second before I do that, before I put this in the quotes here. I don't want to save yet. So we found out that we have this punch in here, and this is just collecting the last entry when Adrian punched in. He's saying, hey, you punched in on this day, you punched in on this day. And we have a script in the FTP directory that is actually signing him. That's signing him in. If you look at this script here, it's saying, hey, bin bash, can you echo line? It's looking for line by line okay, when was the last time the person signed in? In this case, it's just going to give us a time that the signing in happened. Because of this here, because we are looking into that file on a per line basis and just getting the value by using echo, we can give it something else other than time. It's looking for time when signing in happened in the line. So instead of giving it time, we can give it whatever we want. This thing here is running as root. So whatever we give it, it's going to run every minute with root privileges every minute. And that's how we got here. Which says, okay, let's go to the punch in. Since this thing is looking in here with root, let's give it something fun. Let's give it a, let's say, a command that will copy the bash binary. Now I don't know where bin bash lives here, so I need to get out of here first. Hey, is it in user or is it in just slash bin? Sometimes it's in here, sometimes it's in the user. So I need to make sure. Okay, here's our bin bash. I'm going to copy that binary, put it in the temp directory, and make sure that it's given an SUID permissions by the root user. So to do that, we're going to trick the root user. The next time they come in here looking for these lines here, I would like it to just copy the binary for me. I'm not going to copy myself. I'm going to have the script copy the binary for me. I like to put it in slash TMP, because anybody can write there. I'll also name it bash. Actually, I can name it bad bash, or you can just name it bash. How do I know how to do this? Let me close here. I know that when you give any binary SUID permissions and it's executed by root, it will get root privileges, and once it gets that, then I can just run it. So instead of installing, I'm just copying it, the bash, because it's easier. I always copy my bash binary. So copy user bin bash to temp. Let's not try to be fancy. Let's just leave it as bash. Then I'll save this. ls minus ls slash tmp. We don't have bash yet. So what's going to happen is root is going to run the punch in card, and when it does, it will copy my binary. Oh, you know what? I made a mistake. I need to give it SRD permissions. I hope it hasn't run yet. I need to give it SUID permissions. So let's go back. Let's give it SUID permissions. Do an end, make sure that it actually runs. Chmod, it's a plus. What is the chmod for SUIDs? Give me 1 second here. I need to make sure that it gets its SUID. Okay. Give me a minute. I'm looking for, if anybody remembers quickly, what is the SUID permission? Plus U. Let's see. It's U plus S. Like that. All right. So we're saying, hey, make sure that you copy the bash binary, and when you do, make sure that you give it SUID permissions. All right. Now I think I was too late. It created a bash, so I need to remove this one. This one doesn't have SUID. So this one doesn't have SUIDs, as you can see. It's just a regular one, but it was created by root. So, you know what? Well, I can't run it because it was created by root. Or I can, actually. But it won't give me the permissions. Let's move this one and wait a minute for it to come back. Remove from here. Oh, come on. I jinxed myself. There's a way. I'm renaming it. Let's see this time. Okay, so what happened here is I created a bash one, and this is owned by root, obviously, so I can't remove it. But I just changed our punch-in to create another one called bad bash. So bad bash is going to be in here in a minute. There we go. Now, if I go here, if you look the difference, I'm kind of glad that this actually happened, because my original bash doesn't have SUIDs. The other bash, the bad bash, it does have the SUID bit set here. So in that regard, let's run bad bash. If this works, we're going to get a shell. If say ID, where am I? So it actually saying, it's still saying Adrian. It should have been root. What happened? This is a very common privilege escalation technique. If you're going for the OSCP, make sure you know it. Abusing regular things. Okay. So why didn't bad bash give me? Third time is a charm. All right, let me make sure that this actually works. Oh, I see. I was doing it wrong. If only I followed -P. We need to put -P here. And where am I? Now we are in. So just following simple instructions, our SID says -P, so we should have just put -P. Okay, now we're in as root. So we can now slash root. And all right, so we get our flag. Very, very fun way. I highly encourage you to know how to abuse scripts that are written that are calling system commands. So if there's a script that you can manipulate that's being ran by root and it's running echo, ls, any system commands, you can use the same way that we are doing here. We could have just hijacked the command echo itself, the echo command. We would have just taken over that. And it's a very simple way to become root. So right now we're in as root and we got the flag. So finally, I don't want everybody to be here until midnight, but finally here, let's go back to our security onion. First of all, we URL encoded our reverse shell. So I'm not hopeful that we'll find anything interesting from our port. I think we use port 5252. So let's check that port quick. 4242. All right, so here's one. This is just his Recon event. Let's find out. We do see that the source and destination IPs match. The client was 97. The source, in this case, was our Kali Linux 201. So a reverse shell did happen, but because of URL encoding, I don't think Security Onion can see that. So that's the biggest takeaway for us here when we're doing our detection. Simple things like encoding and decoding, like base64 encoding and base64 decoding on the victim. If that goes through the wire, endpoint detection is going to be your best bet. Right now, the only instance where we see 4242 was right here, and it's a ZIG connection log. You can use the connection ID here to track down the actual traffic, and hopefully you can see it, but it's going to be URL encoded anyway, so you won't be able to see much. Let's see. We did run Hydra. Let me look for a user agent here. I wonder if Hydra sets a user agent value. No, we don't have a. What about Nikto? No, this time Nikto didn't even record, which is interesting. Sometimes if you have things like Nmap and things like that, they actually set user agents. And no, let me see if this one says anything to do with Nmap. I believe I need to expand my let's do a 3-hour window. We have to see something with Nmap, right? Because we did run Nmap. Okay. So as far as detection is concerned, if anybody runs Nmap, Nmap reports in the user agent field as, hey, I'm Nmap. I'm doing something in your network. And Suricata likes that too. And so does Zik. So you can search for Nmap traffic. And here in the user agent, I put the stars here because I wanted to just catch that. So that's Nmap for you, and we can see when we ran Nmap in the user agent, we got caught 30 times. We also ran Nikto. So let's find out if Nikto's user agent also talks. And I think Hydra also does the same. This is so that you know what these tools that we play with do. And it shows that you're an amateur when you show up and you start running Nikto and Hydra and things like that, the way we are doing. Because you get caught, as you can see. So Nikto is caught. Let's go to, I think Hydra gets caught too. I didn't run Hydra today. But Hydra, I believe Hydra reports. Hashcat doesn't do that business. I don't think Hashcat does that. So Hashcat is actually a better tool. Oh, GoBuster. So more of the story is all these little tools that we run, they talk in the user agent. It's like you trying to steal on someone's house and putting stickers all over your van before you park it in front of their house saying, hey, I'm a thief. I'm about to break into your house. That's just kind of dumb. But this is all the traffic that we generated. And if you want to interact with it more, you can actually just go and see what it was doing. In this case, it's a lot of bro connection events, and the user agents for each and every one of these did that. Our reverse shell was URL encoded, so we get nothing there, unfortunately. But there's even more things that you can do. You can generate a pickup. I've actually, these are pickups from a while ago. I'll just show you what Security Onion can do for you. It will show you the TCP handshake here, who was talking to who. You can download this pickup and extract files if you saw things that are interesting. But let's also check port 21 before we end here. Remember, port 21 is what led to all this noise here. I'm curious if we can see the reverse shell that we did. So here's all the Zik connections that we did. So we did have quite a few port 21, 12, 1, 2. I believe this one here should show us. It's a Zik connection, so yeah, we won't be able to see the actual traffic here unless if we don't ask for a pickup. But here's where we were. It actually was found as weird. All right. So that was our attack. I'll answer any questions that people might have. I've been blocking a few bots that are trying to come through our live stream. And my software just allows me to just click ban, which is very easy. Someone says, will zombie scan in NPM? Well, if you want to hide your traffic so that it doesn't show up with you in the HTTP user agent, well, there is easier ways, right? You can write your own simple bash script that does port scanning, or you can Google online port scan bash script. There is one that does that. You can write your Python script that does that. You can also just look for common ports right away, because that might not be the best one. He's saying, can we expect AD? I made an AD machine. I was supposed to do that one tonight, but it's not ready. I made an Active Directory lab that we'll be using for a lot of attacks. I'd like us to focus more on the basics of Active Directory attacks. So it's not going to be like, hey, let's get reverse shell and root every time. There might be videos where that shows you the common attacks. The best way that I found is that there's a finite number of attacks that you can happen, right, with Active Directory. There's maybe 6 or 8 main ones. You just need to master these 6 types of attacks. There's a few ways to enumerate Active Directory. There's like 4 ways. You just need to master those 4 ways. There's like a few ways to find or enumerate users. We just need to make videos and do that right away and make sure that things work. And I'll be making a bunch of videos on Active Directory. By the time we're done, maybe end of February or March, everyone who follows me and watches my videos, they should be very proficient at Active Directory and also how to set it up, which is the most important one. So I've already set up a lab. I wrote a script, a PowerShell script that will do most of the setups for you. So you don't have to download my machine. As long as you have your own Active Directory that runs, or the existing lab that I showed you how to set up, you can just run a PowerShell script and you can turn on a way to exploit it, which will be nice. So once my script is ready and pushed to GitHub, I'll be making a video this week or next week. All right, it's late. Thank you very much for everybody for joining me. I apologize for the late start, little snag here and there, but we accomplished our goal. I hope you subscribe, like, and show up next week as we do more attacks. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.